Welcome to Turn Talks, the podcast that bridges the gaps between college and career. Join your host, Tina Fox, founder of Turn Mentoring, as she brings together corporate leaders, educators, and university alumni to share practical wisdom and equip you with confidence, clarity, and connection.
Thank you, Professor Hamilton.
Yeah, how about a round of applause for...
For what Mr. Field.
And these curriculums and classes are very buttoned up and very formalized. And to invite something that's a little bit outside the box in curriculum, this is really real world talk right here. So this is where we have a chance to not only share our stories and how we got here and kind of what we made of our time here and afterwards, but also to take questions, kind of get a gauge of where you guys are at. Most are sophomores here, is that right? Okay. And so we'll get into this thing about this 2-year rule, which to me, I've always applied in my life. I give that first year, that freshman year, a time to actually kind of get to know where I'm at, right? Where I'm living, my suite mates, my roommates, new friends. And then after that first year, kind of once you guys, and you might find this is the case, now you come back sophomore year, it's a warm reception back. You already have buddies that you can pick and choose who your roommates are, and then really reap what you've sowed that first year, just being comfortable on campus, knowing the schedules, how things work, and then also getting to know what you want to major in and possibly have a career in. So
I think sophomore year is like the best year because you've already figured it out after freshman year. You don't have the stress of junior year and internships, and you certainly don't have the sense of urgency quite yet in senior year and I got to get a job, right? So like sophomore year is the best year.
It is great. Does everyone have a major declared? Is everybody within this school of business? So everyone's declared. Anyone undeclared? Okay, so you guys are further along than I was when I was a sophomore. I didn't actually declare. Well, I declared coming in as a freshman as pre-med. I took zoology and botany, and I said, I'm out. I didn't have the constitution to really dig into the sciences. I was trying to please my mom and dad and grandma to be a doctor possibly. What's interesting with my career is it led into business, which I declared the beginning of my junior year, actually, computer information systems. And back then, that was like a programming degree. That was where you were very technical, and I was programming these languages, which are barely used anymore. And what I found was that I just wasn't good at it. And I didn't enjoy it, but it was a ticket to a job. And so we'll talk a little bit about how we got into our majors and whatnot. But my connection to campus really began with my brother, who was a JMU grad. He was 5 years older. So as he was leaving, I was just coming in. And what he told me more than anything, and of course he was a business major, I became a business major. He said, get involved, just do the activities. So what he did, he was a student ambassador. Is anybody a student ambassador in the room? Get tours of campus? Nope. Okay. He was an orientation assistant. Anybody an orientation assistant? Summertime, where you're getting to know, incoming freshmen, and then and showing them the school, and then fraternity life. And I did all three of those when I came in. I was a tour guide, I was an orientation person, and I also pledged a fraternity the spring semester of my sophomore year. So that is really how my network really grew. I found those activities here on campus and really dove headfirst into it.
I did not leverage my networks in school as well as I should have. I didn't leverage the connections that I had with my friends in school, my peers, male or female, and I certainly had not leveraged any alumni. There wasn't LinkedIn. There wasn't any of that stuff. So alumni to me was this foreign concept. It was just people who were here before and now they're out there. And so I never really connected the dots on that. And while you all are here, you have a great opportunity to network with each other, not just socially, but I would stress professionally too. You all are in Cobb. You're looking for jobs in the business world at some point. Whether or not you're going to be in your major, it doesn't matter. You're going to be in business somewhere. Many of you will probably stay in the Mid-Atlantic area, is my guess. This is where a lot of jobs are. A lot of people are coming from Virginia. This is a Virginia State school. And so if you end up in this area, there's 160,000 living alumni, and many of us are in the DC Metro, Richmond, Virginia Beach area. We stayed in the state. So I know both of us are in Northern Virginia. So I would say leverage your networks here and leverage your alumni networks as well, because Rick did that a lot better than me. It took me many, many years to figure that out. So that was one of my key mistakes in life.
Yeah, it was really through my peers. When I think about it, I didn't have like an elder statesman person or someone above, other than my brother, who really was a source of major advice and inspiration to me to kind of do the things I do. So it's really, think about your immediate networks, your networks at home, right? You probably still keep in touch with some of your high school buddies. Maybe they're off doing their thing in different universities. Thank you so much. But, keep leveraging that. Keep those contacts warm, whether it be online when you go home over Thanksgiving or over the holidays and go visit. Find out what people are doing, and siblings of those friends or friends of friends. I didn't seek that out. I didn't think to even connect with the alumni board, fraternity during homecoming. In the fraternity, some of the guys who have graduated would come back. But I didn't do enough to ask them questions about where they are and what companies they were gravitating towards and what was working for them. So that was something that, in your shoes, I would have done differently now, knowing that. You also have tremendous resources here in your professor. So Professor Hamilton has lived a full life. She's been teaching here for over 20 years and really been a pioneer in a lot of ways in this school. So how about staying after class and asking her a little bit about not only the assignments, but a little bit about her experiences and how she got here. You can do that with every single one of your professors. And I even see that in my kids' report. I have teenagers now, but it says in their progress report, if they had any questions on their grades, which I do, because some of those grades aren't what I was hoping they would be. But it says, please have your child ask me a question after school. Come up to me and ask me why their grade is what it is. So it's a great time, a very fertile time for you guys to really start asking those questions. And there's so much runway ahead of you to go that this is the time to start laying that groundwork early. Don't wait. Don't put off. Don't procrastinate. Started now, this weekend, homecoming weekend, right? There's a ton of activities going on where you're going to maybe meet alumni through your different clubs and connections, and really just start introducing yourself to people. It doesn't mean you have to get a job offer or you're not looking for anything, but just get to know people, where they're from, what they do.
So something practical this week, we told the other two classes this morning, is that this week being homecoming week, a lot of alumni are coming back, not just for the game for Saturday, but Friday. If you're running around Cobb, you're going to see a lot of people wearing a lot of purple. And if they look a little older than you, they're probably like us. They're alumni that have come back to serve. Every single department has a board, whether you're finance, accounting, management, marketing, everybody has a board. And then there is a larger College of Business board. And we all come back and we spend the morning here in meetings working with our faculty liaisons to help identify where are the holes in the curriculum, what should we be preparing students for in the future with how the current job market is. We've got hybrid, we've got remote, we've got AI, we've got all this stuff. So we want to better prepare you. So we bring our talents and our skills from outside the university back to the university in these couple of days. And so Friday's that day. We all get together for lunch upstairs at the Commons area. So if you want to come by about 1:30, 2 o'clock, that's like shooting fish in a barrel. Every single alumni that serves is going to be coming out those doors. Just start introducing yourself. We want to meet you. It's not weird that you're going to be there. You're students. We're coming to your home turf. We want to get connected with you. So just start asking, hey, I see you're here for the board. How did it go inside, that room? What did you learn? I'm a student here. Do you want to hear my perspective on some things? What board do you serve on? Love to get connected with you on LinkedIn. Just start making those connections early and often, because this is what it's all about, right? You're here for an education, in my opinion. You're here for an education. You're paying for that, at least. You're here in order to establish your independence in what I call the perfect snow globe, that being James Madison University, right? So we've got this safety net of services offered to you in a university setting with peers that are going through the exact same thing as you. However, you get to establish your independence away from home. And then finally, and maybe arguably one of the most important things that you're doing here at university is you are establishing your network. And you're going to work that network, because who gets a job by applying 100 times online through Indeed? Nobody. So if you want a job, you're going to have to connect with people. They want to know who you are. So why should they look at you versus the other 100 resumes that you're getting? So that's some of the things that are going on this week. And then, of course, we're all going to be here for Saturday, too, because we wouldn't just come in for the board meeting and head out. We want to see the Dukes beat ODU this weekend. So we'll be here for the beautiful 72-degree weekend. So come on out and see us at Tailgate. My tailgate is across from King Hall. If you want to come, I'll be there with lots of people. So it's that grassy knoll just across from King Hall at the top of the bridge. So can't wait to see you.
Yeah, and just tremendous opportunity. Again, don't let it go by without getting something out of it. Just set one goal for yourself possibly this weekend to talk to one person, maybe one alumni or one friend of a friend or someone who's graduated or someone who's even at another university. People come from other schools and come here, and just finding out a little bit about their program. Asking those questions is it's going to be the key ultimately that's going to unlock your opportunity, because with every job is going to come some face-to-face, some kind of interview process, whether it's fully remote and it's on Zoom and you're just kind of looking at each other, or you're physically in front of that interviewer. You want to get these reps in. This is the time to practice, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. It's just starting with, what we found when we got in the working world was a very common thing to do or be asked, or ask someone after, you graduate and now you're in the real world, is asking someone, what do you do? Right. And what do you do is kind of, it's a little cold, right? It's not as warm as it could be. What do you do? Okay. So you're assuming that what you do is who you are, but there's an entire person underneath whatever that job title is that has hobbies, interests, families, things that drive them every day. And so think about an elevated question, something a little bit more. Tell what drew you to, let's say they're from another school. What drew you to University of Richmond? Or, hey, when you graduated, what was the first thing that really surprised you when you started working in the real world? What was it like to go from being in a place where you could wake up with dozens of your friends around and hit D Hall and have a meal together, to then maybe just having one roommate or two roommates, and then it's a smaller group of people that you're actually starting to do? These are elevated questions. These are going to make you stand out, and they're better questions. And in the interviewer's mind, or even the person who is looking at you as a possible prospect for a job, that's going to stick out, because it's not just the what do you do and even where you're from. It's even more than that. So start thinking about how to formulate those questions with the people that you meet this weekend and throughout the year and the next 2 years.
Yeah, and I got a question that you can use anytime. As opposed to what do you do or what's your major. We talked about this in a couple other classes. It's what do you like to do? We just changed one thing. We added one word. What do you like to do? What you like to do might not necessarily be your major. It might not necessarily be your job, but it opens up this whole other identity map of who that person is and where you might be able to connect with them on, right? It's more exciting to talk about what you like to do sometimes than what it is that you do. Right? So if you can just remember that question, what do you like to do? That's a very easy question. You can remember that question, and you can probably have lots of different paths to go down. Carol has, Professor Hamilton had me work on identity maps in previous classes that I've come to support her in. And I put my identity map up there because even though she did an introduction, I wanted to showcase a few other things about myself so that maybe we could have some sort of connection. You all can connect with me on LinkedIn. You come up after class. We can have a conversation. I'd love to get to know you all a little bit better. But this identity map, the reason I put it up there is because y'all did one, right? This year? Okay. So I want you to go back to that identity map and don't just tuck it away and be like, here's my name and here are all the nouns and adjectives that I used to describe myself. Take that identity map, and when I look at my own, so what does it mean that I did studies abroad in Salamanca? That's nice to know. That's a thing, right? But for me, what it did was it took me completely outside of my comfort zone. This is a far more interesting story than those three words, which is I didn't know Spanish when I went to Salamanca, and I didn't have Google Translate because it didn't exist, and we didn't have cell phones because they didn't exist. And so I got dropped off in a country where they didn't speak a lick of English and I didn't speak a lick of Spanish, but a lot of hand signals and figuring things out. And I was horribly uncomfortable, but at the same time, I learned how to assimilate into another culture. I learned how to communicate in ways that, got me to where I needed to be. And I ultimately learned another language. And that has helped me as far as tolerance, understanding different perspectives. And so if I were to go into an interview today, I might take part of that identity map. You might take part of your identity map, and you might open that up a little bit more as to, okay, so what does that mean that you did studies abroad? Or what does that mean that you were first generation? Like, how, as an interviewer, should I be interested in that story of yours? How is that going to affect me as your future boss as to what you're going to bring into the culture of my company? So these are some of the things that I wanted to leave with you guys today, knowing that you've done your identity map, is to really know yourself. Because Rick had said in a previous conversation that if you know yourself really well and you can go into a conversation knowing yourself really well, you're going to be more confident to be able to not only stand there and have that conversation, but you're probably also going to explore certain areas of other people too, because you've done the work on yourself. So now you can ask the curious questions of the other people. So always know yourself first and then start adding on different people into your network.
Yeah, I'm a visual learner. I've always needed to kind of see something, and experiential as well. So getting hands-on, even setting up this equipment. I'm not trained in AV stuff. I plug things in until I hear them. I YouTube it and figure out, okay, well, this wasn't working. This wasn't working for our very first session. I forgot a little button in the back. Okay, and we got it working just fine. But what jumps out here in your story and your identity map, so visually what I'm learning here is that if I were to say, what do you do, Tina, I would see, okay, well, there's an entrepreneur here. There's an accidental entrepreneur. I'm missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm missing over a dozen different things that are a part of your story and a part of what she is bringing into entrepreneurship and into who she is. So really mastering yourself and mastering your own story. I tell people, I produce podcasts and I help fundraise, and I've been in sales for over 20 years. Every one of those tells a story, right? If I'm selling a product, okay, yeah, here's the widget and it costs $200. Boring. Okay. What about this product right here has transformed lives for 25 years? It actually makes patient recoveries up to a week less than traditional surgery with the other tool. How about telling a story, adding some texture to it, right? It's all about storytelling. When I book a guest for podcasts and I interview authors, philanthropists, Olympic athletes, influencers, they've all been on my show. And what is it that we talk about? I'm not a master at being an Olympian. I'm not a master at writing a book. I've never written a book, but I know myself. And I can relate to, oh my God, I have a life story. What brought you, author Tina? What made you, what jumped out to you about your own life to make you sit down and actually document your own memoir and write your story? What was that process like? How long did it take you? What kind of discipline did you need to sit there and write 500 words a day, 1,000 words a day? So all of this is storytelling, and then ultimately also doing fundraising, right? These are heartwarming, heart-wrenching missions that is making a difference, whether it's food insecurity, it's cancer research. These are missions and stories. It's not just how, we do cancer research. No, we are trying to pave the way so that future generations do not have to be afflicted with cancer for the rest of their life. Doesn't that sound more interesting? And framing it in that way that's real. I give myself goosebumps. Like, that's something that actually stands out and it moves you, right, in telling the story. So at the end of the day, when you have an identity map and you write it all down, don't just discard it as something that is like, if I were to ask you something really quick about yourself, oh yeah, I've done this and I traveled to Spain and, I started a company and, I'm, second generation Chinese American military dependent, that sort of thing. I mean, all these things matter. And what's great is when you know your story, you can tailor it to who is asking the questions. So there's a lot of things here on Tina's profile that are applicable probably, and some not. But the more that you've aced your story, then and you can apply that, and you can become more nimble to that, and you can apply it for those jobs, right? If it's a job overseas, well, yeah, I did a semester abroad in Salamanca. You could pull from that. And so that's, at the end of the day, starting a podcast, doing all this, you don't have to be the expert at anything but yourself, and knowing your story and relating that back to your guests, to your mission, to the product that you sell.
Now, can I flip the script real quick?
Sure.
Okay, so we haven't done this in the other classes, but I'm really curious. Yes, this is like Wiki class, right? So we're in the afternoon, we're not in the morning anymore. So I'm just kind of curious, what types of things are you guys, like what's front of mind for you all? What are some of the things that we can answer? Normally we wait till the end for Q&A, but I thought I would tee up Q&A now because we're here, we're alumni, we want to help support you the best we can. What kind of questions do you have as sophomores? What can we help you personally, professionally? What are you thinking about right now? Anybody? And by the way, there are t-shirts on the line. So if we get some answers, you get a t-shirt, or if we get some questions, you get a t-shirt. So
yeah.
Anybody? Don't be nervous, because I'm telling you right now, you have a question, somebody else is thinking that question, they're just not going to say that question. So we want to be impressed with your questions. Yeah.
What's your take on study abroad, and would you recommend it compared to taking a class here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I highly recommend getting out of your comfort zone. So are you thinking about studies abroad?
Yeah.
Where are you thinking?
I thought it was random, like where you get to.
No, you can, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you speak any other languages?
No, I don't.
Okay. So everything's going to be new for you when you go there. So you can pretty much pick anything. So if you're in a business program here at university, you should look into what kind of business studies abroad. The only one that, I think is fun, but I don't think it's immersive enough is the 3-week, like, let's go hit it for the summertime thing. Let's hang out in a big group of Americans as we go tour this other country together. I'm not as excited about that. I know I'm on a podcast and every other person's gonna be like, no, but that's my tour. It's fine. You can do that. I think it's fine. But I think if you really want to be immersive, then going abroad and living with a family abroad, not living with a bunch of Americans, I think is the most immersive experience. I think it will build tolerance. It will build understanding. It will build perspective. And I think all of that is amazing when you're trying to bring that into a company, right? Is putting yourself in an unbelievably uncomfortable position to have to assimilate to something that is brand new to you. So I highly recommend it if you can do it. It's 1 semester. I know it's extra moolah, but they might have scholarships for it.
How would you go about getting an internship from a company you don't have connections with?
Yeah, so that was me, right? So I not only didn't, at the time, connections outside of my brother really have a lot of elevated connections, but I didn't have any opportunities per my matching process, right? I was 0 for 5. And so actually, digging into what you're doing now, what's your major now? Finance. Okay. And what avenues to finance? What have you found right now? Where would you see yourself, in practicing finance or having some form of elevated degree or a master's or something like that? What would you like to be doing with that?
Well, like I would like to get my master's. Like my mom's in finance, so kind of like she's like when I was younger, I kind of always like pick up on what she was doing for years. So like I just like always it was kind of business.
Do you know her story? Do you know how she got to where she is?
Yeah, it's like a long story, but she did, and she ended up basically kind of it was through connections, but it was from a person she got a job with, or one of her friends kind of put her on, and then she didn't get the job initially, but then someone that was interviewing her really kind of liked her and kind of reached out to her afterwards, and at the time she didn't have her good living situation. He actually brought her in and helped her out, and then she really started off beautiful there. Now she's financial management.
Yeah, and she was in that place and time. A lot of things you can't replace. You can't have an education for timing, right? The timing is right, or you just happen to coincide, serendipity. You kind of just happen to be in the room at the right time with the right people. I would say surround yourself with more people who are finance majors. Raise your hand if you're a finance major here in the room. Okay, so immediately your network is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, do you think you guys amongst the 9 in this room, do you think you guys know somebody who else is in finance or has a family member or a friend back at home at another school that's majoring in finance? How about you guys get together for a coffee or for before this class and just say, let's huddle as finance majors. Let's get together and say, what's going on? What are you struggling with? What are you finding an easy time with? Why not network with the people right here? We've got 9 to 10 people right here in this room. So you think about it and you're like, oh, well, I don't really know anybody, but I bet 9 other people know somebody, right? So this is your first step here. How about marketing majors? How many marketing majors? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Is that a hand or?
6, 7.
6. Mm-hmm. Have you guys ever sat down, just you marketing majors, and talked about things about how it's going in marketing? No? How about 5 minutes before class, you guys just sit in the back over there and just talk about how it's going so far, right? So marketing, I'm telling you, if there's anything that's forward facing and out there and salesy and pulling people in, it's marketing, right? That's probably what
I gotta ask, because I see faces and I see smirks, and I can see there's something going on in the ticker upstairs. So when he's saying, why don't you guys get together for 5 minutes before class and talk, either as finance group or marketing group? What are y'all thinking? What's the first thing comes to mind? What's the smirk about? Come on, share. See, he's still laughing about it. What do you guys?
What sounds here, Andy?
I think it probably won't actually happen, to be honest.
Okay, why? I appreciate the honesty. Why?
I just think like no one's gonna take the initiative to reach out and like invite everyone to go like get coffee or something.
Okay. Well, you know how that plays, you fast forward this and now you're graduated. Who's going to take that initiative now to really find something? And I understand there's dynamics. Maybe people don't get along, different circles and all that. But we're just trying to get you guys to start spinning the wheels and think about what's available to you right here in this class. And if it's not this class, it could be another class where you are closer with people, know people better. But the best way that you can accelerate and exponentially grow that network is here in class. Now, if you feel more comfortable connecting online, which I totally understand, back in the day, we didn't have an option. We probably would have done more of that if we could connect online. You still might know each other. Okay, maybe it's a LinkedIn connection. Some of you reached out. I know I got some LinkedIn requests, you guys in this room. That's a great first step. I accepted it immediately because we can be that resource. So look us up, Tina Fox, Rick Bernstein on LinkedIn. If you feel more comfortable, again, doing that. But at some point in time, it's, you're going to work with people that maybe you don't get along with or want to take the initiative with. But you know what? You got to make it happen. You got to continue to move forward. And so again, if it's not in this classroom, then just consider it because you're all here together. There's not another time in your life that you will experience like college where you are just waking up and you roll out of bed and you've got friends all around and things to do all around and meal plans and all that stuff. So take advantage of it.
Let me ask you something. You don't have to answer this. Just think about it in your head. When you think of somebody who is super inspiring to you, whether it's your mom, maybe it's a celebrity, maybe it's a professor, I don't care, whoever. So think of who you think is super, super inspiring. Does that person also take initiative? Yes or no? How many yeses of the people you're thinking? Okay, and those are inspiring people to you, right? So if they're inspiring to you, you can also be inspiring by taking initiative. So even though it might seem very uncool, my kids say the same thing. I've got a 15-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 26-year-old, and they're always saying, "Mom, that's not so cool." And I'm like, I know it's not so cool, but what's going to happen? Are you going to die by like asking somebody, "Hey, you want to have a cup of coffee?" Or, "Hey, can you answer a few questions for me? I've got some curiosities about internships," or whatever. No. So why not just take the initiative and do it? I mean, if you don't try it, you're never going to be able to build the level of confidence or courage, which I think we all want, right? And we'll get into this in a second, but we talked about in previous classes, this concept of imposter syndrome, which at Turn Mentoring we study. We study imposter syndrome as it pertains to students because we know that when you're at university, but you're getting ready to cross this bridge into life, that there is a lot of imposter syndrome of what am I supposed to take with this, $150,000, $250,000 degree, sometimes more, and everything that I learned in 4+ years, and what am I supposed to do with that now? And you're feeling like, wow, I don't know, this is kind of scary. And so in order to build that level of courage and confidence, you got to try things that are maybe out of your comfort zone, like studies abroad, or maybe it's, getting some finance people together or some marketing folks together to have a conversation. Start with something small. The more you build up your confidence in starting with something small, that muscle is going to build up in you, just like when you work out, right? And then the next time you decide to do something, you might take a step to move it to another level. As to, well, if I got that to work and that wasn't so bad and I didn't die in the process, then I'm going to try something else. And just if every day, if you go to bed at night and you think to yourself, you know what? I did something that was different today and it got me out of my comfort zone. That's called growth. If you did the exact same thing today that you did yesterday and there was no development of self, you've just wasted the day, in my opinion. You're way too young to waste the day, right? You've got so much opportunity. You have so much potential inside you. Constantly push yourself to doing something. One more rep in the gym, right? One more conversation with somebody in class. One more minute of studying. Like constantly push yourself. And it doesn't have to be huge. It needs to be very small increments in order to create that. All right, what other questions can we?
I was going to say real quick, there has been nothing professionally for me that I got right the first time. So I graduated with a computer information systems degree, and I got a job, like I said, through Sprint. And I was gone basically 24 months later. and I was on my way to probably getting fired. My job performance wasn't good. And there was an older guy who was a senior programmer guy, and he, without me prompting or asking, he pulled me aside, pulled me into a boardroom and said, "Hey, how are you doing? Are you okay?" And I'm 22 years old. He's probably mid-50s. So he's seen all this before. He could probably tell by my body language I wasn't really loving what I was doing, and I wasn't happy. And I lost it. I just broke down and started crying in the boardroom. And I said, I'm not good at this. I don't love this. This is just not my passion. And he said, you have a lot of gifts and talents. He said, find that thing that really drives you. Okay. So I got it totally wrong. Now, it took 2 years. Again, like we said, I planted the seed the first year, got to know things, was doing my thing. By that second year, it was confirmed I was not good at my job. So how did I fail forward, right? So any successes is about failing. To me, that iceberg that sticks above the water is just reaching feet and feet and feet below the surface of failures. So you were asking me before in one of the sessions, or one of the students asked me, well, how do you define success? And I said, it's failing over and over, but failing in a way that is forward moving. So how did I fail forward? I took my technical aptitude, which wasn't really great, and I moved into more of a consultative role, functional role at a big firm for IT consulting. So now I was working with the programmers. I kind of knew their language, and then I was talking to the client, and I knew their language, right? Then I'm dating a girl whose sister's in healthcare. I asked some questions about healthcare. Next thing I know, I'm assigned or matched up with a recruiter who then gets me into an opportunity in healthcare. Again, I was a pre-med major. Didn't work out. Again, like we said, failing the first time on all this, right? But fell back into it and showed that passion to learn and to really attack, that new opportunity. So there's nothing that I have approached that has been a home run the first run out. Like in my podcast, you can check it out. It's on Spotify and Apple. You can hear my very first episode. It's very spotty. The sound isn't real good. The editing isn't real good, but I left it up there as a reminder to me so that now I can see 70 episodes later and a couple years later where I've become. Do I sound better as an interviewer? Do I ask better questions? And I have that evidence and I leave it out there. It's very vulnerable, right? So people could just pull up that first episode and be like, ooh, this guy's, I don't know about him, right? But I want that to be a reminder to myself that, this is where I started. And now this is where I am, which I think is better. What else? What other questions do you guys have about just kind of our journeys? Yeah, go ahead.
How did you all decide you wanted your career?
Yeah, so I just kept doing the things that I wasn't either that great at or I wasn't that passionate about. So really, it's aptitude and it's passion to me. And so I just kept giving myself those chances for an opportunity. It wasn't a failure. It was just a new opportunity, right? So it was more of a lesson learned. And I think having that mindset and approaching it that way, that's kind of how I kept networking. That's how Tina and I got here. Is we graduated a couple years apart. So we didn't know each other, 2 years ago, but a neighbor invited me to a networking event. I went, I met who was Tina's husband. I met this gentleman who, we just got a Still is. Did I say was?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Still is. Very happily still is. Yes. And he said, oh my God, my wife went to JMU. And he was like, oh my God, you guys would be two peas in a pod. You guys should really meet up. So 6 months later, I booked her on the podcast and here we are. Right. And she's well connected at JMU. And so we had an opportunity where, we could do this in front of class. I've never done this before. I've never set this up here at JMU before. This could have gone totally sideways today. I got here at 6 a.m. to get all of this set up, lugging all this equipment up the stairs, setting it up, and it could have been a total fail. And it might have been. I feel like it's been a success. So you're just putting yourself out there and continuing to seek those opportunities.
Yeah, so I did not plan for my career. I did what was necessary. So I knew that I enjoyed being around people. I enjoyed connecting with people. I did not want to be on a project in a cubicle. That was not my idea of a good time. And I had worked a summer hire job in the federal government where I was in that cubicle, and it was absolutely horrible. They paid better than my other part-time jobs, but I just didn't like anything about it. Now, I also had worked behind the jewelry counter at Best Products, and I got a chance to connect with customers, and I was selling watches. And then if you sold watches, they let you sell silver. And if you sold silver, they let you sell gold and then semi-precious stones and then the coup de grace diamonds where you can make big time commissions. And so I learned in, both of those processes, what I didn't like and what I did like. And so in the sales capacity, when I came here in JMU, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to get into business because I just figured, if you're going to be in sales, you're going to be in business. And I ended up declaring my major into marketing, and I had to take Dr. Gavin's accounting class, which is a Weeder outer class. And I promptly failed that class. And when I failed that class, I was like, oh, now what I'm going to be when I grow up? Like, this is awful. And I talked to my advisor, Dr. Rex Fuller, who said, you know what? You might find your people in the College of Arts and Letters. Like, what do you think about communications as a degree? And I was like, really? Is that such a thing? And he was like, yeah. So he got me involved in, different classes, impromptu speaking, public speaking, debate, interpersonal. And I loved it. I thought it was so different. It wasn't the numbers on a sheet and the spreadsheet. It was more about the connection between people. And so I thrived in that, and I really loved it. When I got out of school, I decided, okay, so even though I'm a comm major, we communicate in sales. And one of the big reasons I chose sales as a woman, and I'm talking to the women in the audience now, is because we're really, really damn good at sales. And if you don't consider sales, you should consider it. Why? Because we have this gene called empathy. We love to solve problems, and we take a lot of care and measure in how we do things. And so I always say, women, look for a job in sales. But one of the other thing that I looked for in sales is I needed to level the playing field. So, don't hate the player, change the game, right? That's my mantra in a lot of things. At the time, men were earning $1.20 to every dollar that a woman earned, right? I don't think it's changed very much. For doing the same job, for getting the same title, it's just women were not negotiating and they were getting in at lower rates. And so the way I felt was sales is the all-time equalizer because he's going to get a territory and I'm going to get a territory and we're going to both get a number and we're both going to have customers and we're both going to have competitors and may the best person win. And I just needed to exceed my number. And if I exceeded my number, I made as much, if not more, than he did. So that was me not hating the player. He was a great guy, right? He's just doing his thing. That was me changing the game. So my career path was really more about that at first. And then as I enjoyed that for 22 years, things in life changed for me and I needed to get out of corporate America. And I ended up becoming an entrepreneur about 11 years ago. And that has served me tremendously. I absolutely love being an entrepreneur. I had never planned on being an entrepreneur. It's not like there was this direct path of, okay, you get your diploma, it's in communications, and you're going to go into public relations in a New York firm. And that's what you're going to do for the next 40 years. No, it's not that. It's trial and error. It's trial and error. And so I love what Rick said about the fact that you have to fail. If I told you all the times I failed, I told you I failed early, right? I failed Dr. Gavin's class here. That was first and foremost. But I failed so many other times. It makes the successes that much sweeter, but it also helps you on your path to who you're going to become. And the fact of the matter is that of everybody who's declared a major, less than 27% of you will actually be doing that job later in life. We all just change. We grow up, we change, we find out things we like, we don't like, and then we adapt to the things that we want to do. And so don't be hard and fast on, I have a plan today, and that plan is going to be the exact same plan in 20 years, because it's probably not.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing about sales, being in sales myself for a long time, is you're betting on yourself. And depending on the compensation structure, it can be you only get paid on what you close, right? So anything that you sell, you get paid on, but other than that, that's it. There's other comp plans that set up where you keep getting paid on the stuff you've already sold, plus you get paid on the new stuff. But at the end of the day, you're betting on yourself. I can not get out of bed every morning and I can just draw on the sales that I've done. And that's kind of nice for a little bit, but at some point that creeps up, right? You're putting it off and putting it off. So you really have to bet on yourself. And sales, again, I would agree, is great in so many ways because you are, again, flexing your interpersonal skills, and you're learning how to navigate a process. And no two customers are going to be the same. What might be important to one might not be important to another. And so it really, I think Mark Cuban said one time, he said, yeah, if I had to do it all over again, I would recommend coming out of college, I would have a sales job during the day and I would tend bar at night. Why? Well, sales has very high earning potential. Most sales jobs do. And then why the bar at night? Well, you are in a atmosphere of just being present and getting to know people around you. and you're of service, but you're also, you've got a lot of power behind the tabs. So if any of you guys in frat life or working the tabs, there's some power there, right? Who gets a beer? And so that's what his recommendation was as well, was sales and then tending bar at night. Now that's a long day. But at the end of the day, what he was trying to stress is just that constant relationship development, right? In different ways, right? Different places. I do that now. I get to be both. I am employed by an employer during the day, and then I'm an entrepreneur, and I have my own business in fundraising and in podcast producing at night. And I just have a lot of things I'm interested in. And I can't, when I was getting into podcasting, I was asked, well, what's your expertise? Like, what are you going to talk about all day, all night, right? And so there are these podcasts that are business focused, sports focused, entertainment focused. And I said, well, I don't know. I just like people. I'm curious about people's stories. So what's my little tagline? It's basically, we create media that inspires and entertains. Who are the guests on my show? People who inspire and entertain, right? So I created something that I can focus on in my guests. So if you're inspiring, you're doing good work, it's nonprofit work, or you're making a difference out in the world, I want you on my show. If you're entertaining, you've done something cool, you've competed in Olympic Games or something like that, or, written a screenplay for a movie, I want to know about that. So I'm not just going to pigeonhole myself to being an expert on one thing. I enjoy learning about people's stories and journeys. You had a hand up, I think, in the back, and I'm sorry we got distracted. Are you good? Did you get your question answered?
I was going to ask Tina specifically about her company and specifically what made her take the leap to become an entrepreneur, but she pretty much covered it, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. So, in a nutshell, I did not plan on becoming an entrepreneur in my previous to 40-year life, I was in corporate America in both Fortune 100 and Silicon Valley startups, and I absolutely loved it. And I was traveling all the time. And then I was lucky enough to have a family, and this was in my 40 plus years. And in having a family, 90% travel was no longer conducive to being a present parent. And so my husband had said to me, you've got skills and talents in BD, and I have skills and talents in operations as a real estate attorney. Why don't we combine those talents and create our own company? And I thought, what a terrible idea that is. Because I love him, but I didn't know if I wanted to work with him necessarily. But it took me about 2 years to really think about that concept and do a lot of vetting of what does this look like. And we're going to quit healthcare. We're going to quit all these bennies, right? There's a lot of weighing of the pros and cons. And, it was a tough time because my youngest son was in and out of hospital for the first 5 years of his life. So healthcare to me was a big deal. And I wasn't sure it was, Obamacare, what was going on with the private market. I was a little nervous about what that meant if I left that corporate job. So there was like some golden handcuffs there. But in considering all these things, I decided, you know what? At the time I was 41, and I was like, I think it's time. If I'm going to make the leap, I should make it now, right? I'm not getting any younger. And so I said, yeah, let's go do this. And we built Cobalt Settlements, which is a title and settlement company in Northern Virginia, in Arlington. We've been around for 11 years. We've got a team that works for us. And about halfway through working at Cobalt, I had an opportunity to exit the day-to-day operations because we did build a team. And so that gave me this, what am I going to be when I grow up, thought. And I really didn't know, to be honest with you. I'd been dabbling with consulting. I was CEO of another company at the time that had me out networking, and it was really wonderful. But it was me coming back here to JMU and serving you all as students. I was really seeing a reflection of my younger self. I saw that I was in their position, 20 years ago. And at the time. And I was thinking to myself, man, I remember being first of my generation and freaking out about how I was going to get a job and, what I was going to do for the long haul. And I really needed to set an example. And so as I was meeting you, many of you wanted to be mentored. And so I was taking my personal time to mentor a few of you, and then there just got to be too many of you. And so I started calling my LinkedIn network and saying, hey, would you all mind helping me out with some students? These are really amazing JMU students. They're super curious. They just want to get connected. And they did. They answered my calling. And then Professor Hamilton actually challenged me on doing more in her classes. And I said, you've been running mentorship programs. I'm now starting to mentor some of these students. Maybe I can build a better program for your class. And she said, yes. That'd be great. What's that going to look like? And so we talked about it, and I built my very first program here at JMU. And then from JMU, I was like, this is going crazy. We ended up serving hundreds of students here at JMU. I started recruiting in hundreds of alumni, not just of JMU, but of UVA, Penn State, Harvard, Clemson. I mean, I had a pretty thick network, and they did not have this opportunity. Their alma mater. And so I started bringing them here to JMU. By the way, they think you're super cool. They're like, JMU students rock. Like, they are so well put together. They're so even keeled. They're so friendly. They're hardworking. So you all have a good reputation out in the world. I just want you to know that, even from the Harvards of the world. So with that being said, I decided in COVID, when we had to take a break from the class work because everybody wasn't here, I looked at my husband and I said, you know what? I think I need to build a company. And he's like, what are you going to build it in? And I said, I think I'm going to build an ed tech company in mentorship. There's nothing like this that's being offered. They don't do it the way that I do it. There's so many alumni that want to serve their younger selves. They want to live their legacy through mentorship. And so, he was like, okay, I guess we're building another company. And I said, yeah. And I'm not a coder. I'm a comm major. So what did I know about coding? I didn't. I just took my ideas. I put them on paper. I started asking for help, which, pro tip of the day, if you think you can do it alone and you're just going to suck it up and figure it out and you're going to YouTube your way out of things, forget about it. It's not the way of the world. You have got to swallow the ego, and you have got to ask for help all the time, early and often. So I asked for the help, and I got help, and I started building this company, and we ended up going outside of JMU, down the street to Mary Baldwin. We're now at Texas Tech. I just launched 1,000 people in the program last month, and it just started building. It was just on accident. I looked at a problem, and I wanted to fix it, and I looked at your faces, and I said, yeah, I want to help them. That's how Turn came about.
Do you guys find an opportunity out there now that you feel is just there's something missing? There's a problem that you really want to solve that's just burning. I don't know if it's keeping you up at night, but something in the back of your mind. Anything experiential, you go somewhere and it's like, oh man, the service isn't great, or we could improve that. Do you guys ever get your wheels spinning that way? Think about a problem to solve. Is there one you want to share or talk about?
Well, I was gonna say I hate my boss. I was gonna go from there.
Okay.
I was like, ooh, maybe not.
What kind of work?
It's a theater team member at a Cinemark.
Okay.
And it's so governed a weird way because we have separate managers that will overlook everybody.
Yeah.
At the same time, they'll just be in the back. They're not truly like being able to monitor what's truly going on. So when it comes time for employee evaluations, right?
Yeah.
They're lying out of who knows what when it comes to how it feels for the actual employee.
Right. So, and that's frustrating. Well, how would you change that? What would you do if you were in their shoes?
I would change the whole curriculum. I would want someone like actively out there because, I mean, that's also part of their job. They shouldn't just be sitting back there. Granted, they do stuff back there, but at the same time, I would hear things. They're just back there like scrolling on TikTok.
Have you ever made notes on some of these things? And it doesn't have to be in an accusatory way. So being diplomatic about things when you have a problem. I report also to a boss, and I'm my own boss. I frankly like reporting to myself more than, someone else. But have you ever just jotted down a couple suggestions and said, hey, and it doesn't have to be mean-spirited or confrontational. You like the job. I mean, you like the paycheck, right? You like getting a paycheck. And that's how I felt in my first job. I was not good at it. I didn't enjoy it, but it afforded me a chance to live with friends, rent a place, go out on the weekends, do those things and be independent, right? So it's great that you have something that's helping pay the bills, right? So don't just necessarily give up and cut bait and then try to find somewhere else. Maybe just jot that down and see how that's received. Now it's a chance you could open their mind to something and say, oh, I didn't know you felt that way about it. Maybe we would change something like that. Or if they're just insufferable and they're just terrible, right? Then maybe you could think about, okay, well, now I have something to put on a resume. You've done this work, and now I'm going to move that over into maybe another theater or something else. So there's opportunity there. And so if you look at it, anything you're dissatisfied with, make notes of it. Suggest it to whoever you're reporting to or whatever job you're in. And again, it's all about how you go about it.
You're in interpersonal skills. You've obviously got an issue at work where the interpersonal skills are lacking, because by the time you get to evaluation, you're like, what are you evaluating me on? You don't even connect with me at this point. So I love what Rick said, is taking that opportunity. This is hard, right? Because this could be confrontational, and this is somebody who's your superior, and you're offering, some feedback. And so how many people in here routinely offer feedback to other people? Not online, face to face. I don't care about the muscles behind a keyboard. I want to know that you're eyeball to eyeball.
Yeah.
So we don't do a lot of feedback these days, right? We do a lot of it online. The muscles get like super big, right? People just start like going off online. But when you have to come face to face with someone, that is a totally different monster right there, right? Now, so nobody in the class, for podcast purposes, because I'm not saying this, nobody in the class raised their hand when I asked the question, how do you routinely give face-to-face feedback? Nobody raised their hand. One.
Well, can you qualify, like, what does feedback mean to you?
Anything, any constructive criticism, any compliment, any like, hey, that wasn't very nice, I didn't really appreciate that. Any sort of feedback in the moment. You've done that? Okay, so we want to change our hands. Has anybody ever given those feedback? Okay, so we've got a few more.
Something you change, do different. It could even be to a professor and just say, okay, that just understanding kind of the work, the coursework and what's behind it. Again, it's in the attitude that you bring towards it. So it doesn't, again, have to be confrontational, but the more diplomatic you are, the more understanding you are, but just you're there to listen and get information.
Yeah.
So
now, different show of hands. How many of you have asked for feedback on a routine basis? Okay. Are you asking from your professor? I mean, I know you get grades and stuff, but are you asking about like, well, how am I doing as far as participation in class? Or are you asking your peers, how am I doing as far as showing up for you as a friend? Are you asking your family? Who are you asking feedback from? Just your boss? Who are you asking feedback from? Yeah.
I haven't been able to do it now because they're not an ice rink here, but before I came to JMU, I wrapped adult hockey games at deep ones as well. And you can be working with anybody from night to night. It changes all the time. They might have been wrestling games for like 20 years, or it might be their first. But after every game, I asked them like, all right, what did you see from me that you want to give feedback on, good or bad? Again, regardless of whether they were super experienced or inexperienced.
Was that helpful to you?
Yeah, super. Because a lot of times when you're doing something wrong in life, you probably just don't know it. You just need someone to let you know, and then it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And then you can make that change. And if you're out there with someone trying to like control the temperature of a game, and you're not like communicating well, and you're not like comfortable with each other, like sharing how you feel about them, like how you guys can improve as a team, then that's going to make it a lot harder. You want to be successful, you just gotta like talk and let your feelings be known about what you like and then what could be done better. So yeah, I found that super helpful. That helped me grow as a better.
I love it.
As a job.
I love the fact that you're a hockey ref and you're asking for feedback, because I would assume as a hockey ref, you get a lot of feedback, especially from the audience, right? That was a tear stalls. Yeah. As a hockey mom, I hear the feedback coming at you guys on the rink. So thank you for asking for feedback.
But you didn't take anything that could be perceived as kind of somewhat negative, or you missed a call, or this as you're worthless. You can't do your job, that kind of thing. You said, okay, I could do better next time. Yeah, right.
Not personal.
Yeah, it's not personal. And that's exactly it. These things aren't personal. And I would say if I was in a job interview, Tina's like, okay, I see you're interested in the sales position. What do you think is your biggest weakness? And I would say this in any interview that I would go on now. I would say, I tend to take things professionally just a little too personally. When someone doesn't buy my product or turns down an opportunity to be on a podcast, or I don't get the fundraising gig that I really wanted, I'm like, okay, what did I do wrong, right? Was there something about what I did, how I carried myself? And I've gone so far as to ask, okay, yeah, so tell me a little bit about your decision. And I understand we're not a fit. Could you just kind of elaborate on that and tell me a little bit about why we're not a fit? But I have to now, at almost 50 years old, still remind myself not to take things too personally. And you're already ahead of the game in that. So that's the thing. Okay, you messed something up the first time. Does that mean the rest of your career is done? Of course not. Right? So just let it roll. Let it roll off your back. Take it, duly note it, boom, put that to the side. Now moving forward. So it's really, and that's, what does that go back to? Knowing yourself, right? And this imposter syndrome and those things, the more you know about yourself, that's breeding that confidence. And what I shared before, and taking action to do those kinds of things. To me, I had heard it, it's not my words, but someone had said, action absorbs anxiety. Okay. I was anxious coming in here this morning. Okay. This is a new format for me. I've done live events in other different ways, but setting all this equipment up and coordinating with Tina and all these things, I was constantly moving and doing, and it was absorbing my anxiety, right? I was anxious about it. But at the end of the day, just keeping yourself moving, keeping yourself engaged, will take some of that anxiety that you're feeling going into a test. Go for a run, right? Get some exercise, take a break, do something, whatever it is, but keep yourself active and moving when you're starting to feel a little overwhelmed from the situation, right? Or a little nervous. You're about to go into a job interview. Can you do some deep breaths? Can you do something that will relieve that, right? Keep moving. And I think you'll find that a lot of that anxiety is going to, knowing yourself and also just giving yourself that time to absorb some of that anxiousness that you're feeling. So
That's a great tip. I'm curious, since we're talking about difficult conversations, feedback, I think this is a great exchange. What would you say is the hardest thing you've done in life to date? The hardest thing you've done in life?
Yeah.
My math classes in community college at Allergy Community College. Yeah, maybe do calculus. And yeah, that was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Right.
And I failed the first time because before I had to do that, I had to do pre-calculus. And I did really bad on the first exam, and I did the math with my professor. He said, unless you got 100% on everything else in the class, you're not going to pass it. So I withdrew, so I didn't get a grade penalty. And then I took it next semester, and it was definitely with a lot of kids who weren't as good as math, the fall in the barrel. But that's where I need to be, so I was good. So I failed the first time, and then I passed that class, and then I passed real calculus on the first try after that. So, but that was the hardest thing I was doing in my life.
What did you so you're still here?
Yeah, and I wouldn't get here if I didn't pass that calculus that semester. That would have thrown my whole plan to transfer to JMU top of the air, and I would have heavily had to consider just quitting college and having to figure something out.
What'd you learn from that whole failure, hard thing that you had to do?
The failure definitely helps and makes you realize where you gotta fix things up in terms of not so much how long I was studying, but how I was studying in terms of making it as effective as possible. Because I was putting in more time than other people, but it wasn't working. So I could figure out again, what can I do to fix that? And then the class I did after failing it the first time, they had you meet every single day instead of every other day. That really helped as well. Something like math, where it's just keep it in your head, because math is something where if you don't do it for a few days, you're gonna kind of forget it. So just changing it up like that helped a lot. And when I did calculus, I did that one alma, because I was okay, I want to do another change and see what I got. This change this time, different this time this way. So I think that helped as well. That was a risk too, because virtual could have been way worse, but I enjoy it too. I like trying in person and virtual. So I just try to do things out and change things up, and I think it works. Yeah, that's what I'm here.
Well, you kept going, right? You showed resiliency. You didn't get knocked down. You got back up, right? Get knocked down, get back up. Keep going.
Is there something that you all are dealing with right now that's super hard that either Rick or I could help you with? Connect you with someone?
Sound it out, whiteboard it.
Anything? Now's your chance. You get help. You get free help. Help can be expensive. I know. So pay for it. Yes, ma'am.
I can just have another question. Sure. It's the best piece of advice that you guys have both can give, and that should help you grow your business, or more so a brand for yourself.
Yeah, I would treat practice like the actual game, right? So any opportunities, the more chances right now that we have that I'm getting to talk to you guys, this is sharpening my ability and skill to communicate for my next podcast and the next guest, and kind of learning about what you are. So I think treating practice, let's say homework is practice, to actually treat that like the quiz, like the test, and treat it all with the same respect. Because I think what you're going to find is that ultimately, for me, feeds into the confidence, right? So I get nervous about things I don't feel prepared for. So if I'm going into a fundraiser, and so my role with fundraising is advising these nonprofits on how to raise money in an live event way. So how to sell tickets, the order of events, what we call the run of show, the timeline. I'm an auctioneer. I'm a licensed auctioneer. So I could go 1,000 now, 1,100 now, 12, how about 13? What do you get now? 13. So I do that, right, as well. But if I don't know that mission inside and out, and I don't know the purpose of where those dollars are going and how they're benefiting, I get anxious. I get nervous. What if someone asks me, well, what does this money go towards? Why should I give, right? So treat the practice, the homework, like the performance, like the actual test or like the quiz, because you're going to find that you're going to not only be able to relax and settle in, but you're going to be able to enjoy the time, right? I'm going to be able to enjoy these events and network and kind of socialize, hands in the pockets. I'm not like on my phone, like, crib notes, like, okay, well, yeah, what do they do? And how much money are we trying to raise? I really treat my preparation like the actual performance itself. So again, don't take these things and for my kids at school, right? They have summative, informative, and homework, and it's weighted differently, 70%, 20%, or 25% and 5%. And what I noticed with her work is her worst grades are in the homework because it's only 5% of the grade, right? But what about the other 25% and the 70%? She rises above, and I think that's great, but that's bringing her down. That 5% homework grade is bringing down that overall grade for her. So she's not practicing like she's performing for the tests and getting herself ready. And her confidence gets hit because I have to sit down, Susanna, come here. I know you're better than this. I've seen you. You're smart. She had all straight A's in 7th grade, and she's an 8th now. Didn't get a B, all A's. And now I'm starting to see grades that are starting to slip. Well, Dad, I can turn it in later. It's not that important. And that's not the point. So I think you'll find yourself enjoying the moment and being a better executor of that performance if you treat that practice like the real thing. So.
All right, we are coming up on time. I know you have busy lives. Happy homecoming week. Beat ODU. Make us really, really proud. My tailgate tent is across from King Hall. So if you know where King Hall is, right at the top of the bridge on the left-hand side, if you're facing King Hall is a grassy knoll, I'll be there. You'll see the Turn Mentoring tent. Come by, say hi, and let's chat. Also connect with both Rick Bernstein and myself, Tina Fox, on LinkedIn. Every class I ask, I only get 10% of those at LinkedIn. So LinkedIn with us, be one of the ones that do it, because you never know where your connections will land you. I wish you the best of luck here at JMU. I'm sure I will see you in the hallways at Cobb, and do great things out there. All right?
Rick, there's little sticky notes too, right? We're starting to get sticky notes up.
It's a sticker.
Little sticky one. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Turn Talks. To learn more about our robust mentoring platform, visit us at turnmentoring.com. Join us next time for more enlightening conversations.